People say there is a first time for everything. A first kiss, your first car, the unrequited first love. However, what does this mean in the grand scope of things? Are firsts more monumental because they are the first, or do we get better with practice? Do we remember our firsts as more important than they actually were, holding on to that magical moment as a mark of our past and future selves? Do our firsts outshine what comes next? On A First Time for Everything, we will explore with our guests their firsts and how those impacted the seconds, thirds, and even countless times after. Is the first the best or merely the beginning? Or worse, was the first the last because it was so bad? We will dig into the recesses of our memories and consider whether or not a first was the start of something amazing or something we'd rather not remember. Come along with me, Juliet Rose, as I put our guests in the hot seat to analyze their firsts and how they defined who they became. I promise you're in for a fun, although maybe bumpy ride. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A First Time for Everything. We have, unfortunately, the wrong background from last week's guest still up. So this is not Juliet Rose. This is Cyndi Brec, who will be joining us tonight. So I covered up the other cover, but yeah, we're just going to have to kind of wing this a little bit so we stay on track. So again, Cyndi Brec is joining us. Cyndi, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where people can find you?
Okay, so my name is Cyndi Brec. I'm a YA fantasy romance author. Romantasy is another term that's used, and a lot of my stuff can be found on Amazon. I am getting into bookstores right now, so I'm very, very excited about that. And a little bit more, my book has also scored a 4.5 on Teen Magazine. And so I was very honored to receive that late last year before the launch. That was February 20th this year. And my book is the first book of a trilogy. So, and it's a dual world trilogy. So there's, you encounter two total different world settings and everything. And I use actual real history. So it's kind of interesting using the history aspect of it and then twisting legends and stuff, but I love it. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. So is this your first book or do you have multiple books?
Okay, so The Therans Secrets Beneath Scars is my first book. That's the one I just put out a few months ago. And it's the one that I fell in love with my character about. And she is just, I don't know, I love Callie. She cares about everybody, but that could actually be the worst thing, because if you care about people, that puts you in the danger zone, because conspiracies and worlds and danger and stuff like that, you can't defend everybody. So she's edgy, she's emotional, definitely angsty, but she's got my heart. And this has been a huge undertaking for about, I'd say 10 years at least, that I've been crafting the world, because there's so much behind the world building. It's not just the pages on paper. You have to breathe life into it and make it come to life so that it sounds real and plausible and stuff. And I think that's one reason why I love the magical realism of setting it in history.
Yeah, I like that too. I'm a librarian. I was just talking to somebody today about having that historical element on two sides. One, it lends these layers and credibility, I think, to what you're writing, but also for those of us who don't really like reading history, but have learned it through fiction, it's pretty awesome. Like, I love historical fiction because of that, ability to learn something about history without having to just like read a textbook.
Yeah. I like historical fiction too. Alexa Ashton is one of my favorite authors, and she's got a way of anchoring the reader into the settings, whether it's a castle or whatever. But the component about fantasy just allows you that extra step of escapism in your reading. And I just think there's something so engaging, and it removes you from the stress of the world of today and anchors you into something that, kind of like that magical realism that's plausible, but it's got that edge of just that fantasy vibe that just totally allows you to escape. So I don't know. I love it.
So what drew you to that particular genre? Like, what is it that, you know, instead of other genres, what was it that really kind of connected you to feel like that?
Well, I think I got connected to the young adult fantasy romance because, one, I love romance. That is fantastic for me. But I think I like the mystery behind the unknown. And I like the innocence of the young adults and what they have to stumble through in life to learn. And I think when you get into, I love all different genres, but when you get into books that have older protagonists, they know so much. And then you sit back, if they're doing something stupid, you're sitting back thinking, well, why didn't you know that? That's stupid. And then you put the book down because it's like, well, that's not plausible. But with the young adult books, and it opens up such a world of unexpected, unexplainable, and you could take advantage as an author of their innocence, their ignorance, and put them into danger zones, make it more engaging and make it more dramatic, you know? And I think that's what anchors me, that's what draws me. So I think I like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because as a lot of drama that we have found is that like a lot of adults read YA. And you know, it has kind of created this conversation of why. And a lot of them said the same thing you just said, is like it allows them to open their minds more to the idea of what's happening instead of kind of getting caught up in those little details. We're like, that doesn't sound right, because it is YA. And do you find that? Do you have a lot of adult readers as well?
Yes, I do have some adult readers. I just started with this, so I'm new to the world and stuff like this. So it's kind of great. But what I love about okay, so I write young adult fantasy to basically say to the reader, this is a mystery, this is great. But when I write to the adults, I want them to see the struggle, the drama, the tension behind the mystery. And so I think it's captivating in both worlds, not just young adult. There's an author, I'm trying to think of her name, Allison Goodman. She has drawn such a huge group of my age followers, and because she is so relatable to the history world. And at the same time, her character Helen draws in the newness of the young adult world. And there's just that whole blend together. And I just think it opens up just a whole world and a whole new door and stuff like that. And I think it's engaging for readers that are older to sink their teeth into something that's young that they could have identified with, but yet at the same time, they can grow with.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, well, Anita says hi. Hi, Anita. Thank you for tuning in. A.L. Mango says hello as well, and he likes the concept of the show. Thank you. We appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. One of the questions I had, you know, and this kind of gets into, I guess, current day, not really current day, this is always kind of an issue, but with book bans and writing YA. And like recently we had to move books that were in the YA section to out of the YA section because of some subject matter. Do you find, or do you have any worries about dealing with subject matter that might be considered too adult for YA, or are you pretty comfortable with what you write?
I'm very comfortable with what I write. I write closed door romance, so there's no sex in my books. I think that there's there's a balance in a lot of things, and you could even take that to bullying. It doesn't just have to be sex. You could take it to different levels, curse words, whatever, because it's all a subjective area. I just close the door at sex. I think that if you have a tender and intimate relationship between the hero and the heroine, that tenderness will supersede everything. And the nice thing is, if it's a closed door and they have that delicate moment of that tenderness, that kiss scene, it makes whatever would have been behind that door nothing, because it seems more real.
Sure.
But I do have issues when there's sex in scenes for young kids, because I just truly don't think it should be there. I think it's more meant for adults. And I even, to a level, have issues with huge violence. But I will admit, which I have my whole entire book series now written, but come the third book, I mean, you get violence. I mean, you've got to have it. So, I mean,
and it's interesting you said with the third book, because the series we had to move, the first two books were fine. And then the third book came out, and all of a sudden that book kind of crossed into where it wasn't YA. So we just ended up having to move the whole series because of that one book, because we didn't want them starting with YA and then thinking that was YA and then, having to do that. Yeah. So I think there are challenges with YA that a lot of people don't consider. I've talked to other authors who want to write YA, but they quickly get out of that genre. Like as they start writing, they start including things that maybe, aren't necessarily appropriate. So yes, an adult can read YA, but YA is still supposed to be really, I guess geared towards your older teens.
Correct.
And so having that kind of subject matter can definitely be a challenge. I've seen books labeled YA that I wouldn't call YA, for that same reason.
Yeah, I have too. When the boundaries that I might cross, definitely by the third book, are like major fight scenes, because I had to work with a professional on some of the choreography of the fight scenes and stuff. And I think that has to be intense. I mean, your female character has to have, if she's going to have power, she's got to come up against her opponent. Her antagonist has to be intense, so you've got to have some really choreographed scenes. So there's that. And I'm so well read that I made sure this was not like, none of my books seem to end with a typical ending. I try to push that edge real far, but yet I do keep it in the YA boundaries. I don't want to, even when I continue on writing, I don't want to step out of the boundaries of things. I don't want to write sex. I don't want to get into the bullying aspect, because I think you have to be careful even about that. There's so many trigger words, so much sensitivity for readers, and you just want to be careful out of respect for them too.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Heather just said, popping into the stream. Hi, Heather. Appreciate you popping in. One of the things you mentioned that I actually found interesting was the choreography. So when you are planning out these scenes, these fight scenes, and you say choreography, how exactly, what do you mean by choreography?
Okay, so, well, let me back up one second. So I'm dyslexic, and it's given me I jokingly say this like a superpower, but I visualize scenes in my head. And if you Google anything, people with dyslexia have this ability to see spatial things easier in their head. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of like a video. But I have this video in my head, but the movements that I see in my head don't necessarily fit an actual scene of what would go down. And in addition to that, I might not know the technical words that apply to that, or the scientific components, let's put it that way. So I have to consult, usually it's with my son, who has 2 black belts. And I'm exchanging conversation with him. I think at some point he's going to be like, Mom, I got to start charging for this. But I ask him lots of questions. And then I ask my husband, especially, scientific questions, because he's a brainiac. But I wanted to bring something real to this. And I didn't want to make it sound like, I just wanted this story, and especially the fight scenes, to be more real. It's subtle at first. Book 1 is the newness of her discovering who she is, and the excitement of kind of just the unexplored territories with romance, and the first intimacy of kissing, and all of this wrapped up with all the danger. But it's the danger of taking steps into a world that's soaked in archaeological mystery, that's surrounded by legends of a group of people that are stewards of history. And then you go to book 2 and it's like, what? And you explore the Theran world more. And then you get into book 3 and it's it's an overdose of romance. And I don't know, I tried to write this whole entire series with the newness aspect of everything being new, so that the reader was going to engage with something that was going to be so different along the whole journey. And they got to grow with Callie from the time she was young until she got to be the 18-year of age mark. So I don't know. It's actually been very fun to get to know her as a character.
Yeah, they almost become like family. I was like my characters definitely live in my head. So with the choreography, just out of curiosity, do you guys actually act it out, or are you just asking like for technical advice, or do you actually like have your son stand with you and you try different kind of movements?
He definitely has acted out some scenes with me.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, and then when, like what I said, when I think in my head, he'll look at me and say, "Mom, no." Right. That's not going to work. And then he explains why it won't work and stuff like that. And so, and you have to be very careful when you write that you sound like you know what you're doing. Yeah. And so that's why it's nice that you've got somebody at 11 o'clock or midnight. You can say, "Hey, can you just put that on pause for a minute and tell me, do I got this right?" And he'd be like, "No, Mom, no, you don't." Or I stop him in the middle of a conversation with his buddy and I say, "Hey, does this work?" And he's like, "Yeah, it actually does." So it's good to have that give and take with him. But no, we've acted out quite a few of the scenes. It was a while back because I had that book written a while back. But yeah, so it's just fun.
Yeah, so I used to be a skateboarder back in the day, but I was a road boarder. Like I didn't do tricks. I wasn't that person. But my son does tricks, and I was writing a book where the characters were having to do tricks in the skate parks. And same thing. I had to ask him, and he'd be like, "Yeah, no, that's not going to happen." Or "Yes, that's going to happen," or whatever. So yeah, it definitely helped out a lot to have that advice from somebody that could help. And yes, it does add authenticity. I think that I've read books where you can tell somebody actually doesn't really know exactly the details of what they're talking about, because you kind of pick up on it pretty quickly. So I think it is important to have people you can rely on to really give you that information and that feedback.
Well, and I think it's appropriate that you have people like my daughter. She'll read over things, or she'll say, "Mom, do you know really what that word means?" And I think the word was dank. Yeah, like dank. Like
it means something different now. Yeah.
Mildew. And she says, "No, Mom.
No, that's not what it means anymore."
I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm leaving it." I said, "I'm not changing it because they come up with all these coin words." And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm still current or cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because dank totally means something different. But yeah, you do have to also it does also mean musty and wet and
right.
But yeah, it has a whole different meaning now too. But I do agree that when you're writing, sometimes you have to just say no, because that word may fade out. I'm still using it as the original meaning of the word, and that's okay. But yeah, that's
funny. Yeah. And maybe we could educate them a little bit and have fun in the process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I'm curious about this. So this is your first book, but Correct. You clearly are, you're not 18 years old. So was this something you always knew you wanted to do? Did you write other things? Did you kind of work up to this point, or how did you really get into this?
I always had a desire to write. I didn't know if it was going to be a dream that could come true. I'll be honest. Yeah. But my desire started in high school when I started getting better at reading and learning how to work with dyslexia, and not feeling like it was the world was going to fall apart. I took the challenge, I embraced it, I learned how to work with it, and now it's like, oh, I'm so thankful I have it, because I wouldn't be the person I am today. But once my kids got into school, my daughter, especially in kindergarten, I was like, what do I do with my time? I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm like, So I just started dabbling, going to writing groups, joined a critique group. I'm still with them 14 years later. Nice. Yeah, that is a huge blessing, seriously. And I just met a world of wonderful people. There is something beautiful about writers, the artists. there's a heart. There's just such a deep givingness in that community. And I actually love it. But I've always had the desire to write, and I'm thankful that I didn't give up on myself or my character story. And I don't think Callie, and I jokingly say this, would have given me an opportunity to give up, because when I started getting the desire to write, I would get these like scenes in my head, and I'd go to sleep at night, and these ideas, these scenes would percolate. And by the time I was done, I was like, if I didn't write it down on a notebook by the side of my bed, it would just keep building and building and building. The shutdown button was writing it down. Yeah. And then I knew that I could get up and, write it in a storyline. But then I was learning the craft at the same time. And I've always stuck with her. I've never changed Callie's name from the get-go. She was always Callie. Tristan was always Tristan. I've grown with them. And I think part of it's probably because Callie's kind of like a mixture of me and my daughter. So when she got angsty, I wrote all about it. So she's like, Mom, I remember that scene. I'm like, well, yeah. So
my children are now adults, but yes, I've done the same thing. I'm putting out a book next month where there is a character that is literally my son, and his teenage attitude and all of it. So yes, he laughs about it now. I'm sure he wouldn't have found it so funny a few years ago, but now he can laugh it off.
Yeah, my kids are older too, and so I get that.
So I want to talk a little more about being dyslexic and writing, because I think it's really important for, other authors, but also readers to understand that, a lot of times writing comes with unique challenges. Mm-hmm. And I know you said like you're glad for it because it's giving you kind of a different perspective, but what are some of the challenges that you face in writing?
Well, one, if you sit down and you're writing and you're tired, I will transpose every letter. I can't write when I'm tired. I can't write when I'm stressed. It's a shut off. I mean, automatically have to shut it down. My mind runs too fast for my fingers to keep up with it. Sure. And I'm visualizing things, and it's helter skelter. So I usually have to do, if I want to get a hold of it and I still want to progress, and if I could catch it before I'm truly exhausted and stuff, I usually have to do some deep breathing techniques. And that usually works for me, as long as, like I said, I catch it in advance. Now, I still will transpose letters and stuff like that, but I could get a hold of it. But you don't want me to balance out my checkbook.
Right.
Get a little bit of problems there.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's some of the challenges. You say that you feel like it does give you kind of a different perspective. So can you like talk a little more about that, like how you feel like it helps your writing?
Well, I've talked about the spatial understanding, and I don't know all the terms. I just understand that there's a lot of authors that actually do have dyslexia, but there's something to do with spatial understanding or something that we could see things like in I don't know if it's a 3D way, but I know I can, but we just see like a video being a film. Yep. in our head. And it's just, I don't know. It's like you're living the moment as you're writing it.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it. And the thing of it is when there's something really intense, sometimes you better take a step back, because your emotions flow into what you're writing, especially
100%.
Really well.
Yeah.
And if there's and especially if your history of what you've encountered throughout your life pours into even that to even impact it more, which it should, you've got to slow it down. But I think I don't know enough. I just know enough about me when I write and the dyslexia I've had and stuff like that and how to work with it. I think each person has, and I think there's different types of dyslexia too. I'm not sure, but there's different types. But I don't know. I'm very thankful for it because it's me. Everybody's an individual, but this is just one of the components that has made me special for myself, And my character Kelly's dyslexic.
That's really cool. See, I like that. Yeah, bringing that in. Yeah, so I guess you were talking about being tired, and I kind of want to touch back a little bit on that, but kind of going maybe a little bit deeper into that is when we are tired or emotional, like you said, we kind of let our characters feed off of that, and it can be positive, it can be negative. Obviously, if we want that scene to be maybe emotionally charged, then certain things that we feel at the time may help that. But there's a challenge. I have the same thing. When I'm tired, what I find is that I kind of not rush through it, but I'm not really digging in as deep as I'd like to. Or if I'm upset about something, or if I'm too happy, which can happen, you're trying to write this heavy scene, but you're like, I feel pretty good about life right now. It's kind of hard to do.
Oh, that happens quite a bit.
So when you write, like say you decide to write, do you have like a certain kind of, I guess, plan of how you write or when you write so that you can kind of really make sure that you're like on par with where you want to be?
Yeah, I have a routine. Yeah. When I do write, I'm more on the aspect of the administrative end, marketing and learning that right now. But I have a pattern to that, yes. And usually my routine, I do writing sprints and I time myself. So I'm writing at least 45 minutes before I'm getting up to take a break. And it's taking that break that refreshes me to come up with more brainstorming ideas. And a lot of the time, that 15-minute break, I'm running back to my desk to actually get into the groove more, because you come back with another idea that you're layering a different emotion into that scene, whether that scene's intense, laughter, or, dramatic, Yeah. And one of my scenes I was writing when, one of the books I was writing when my son almost died. And so I had to work through that. And it was therapeutic to pour all my emotions into that book.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how therapeutic writing is. And writing also, whether it's a journal, whether it's a book, gives clarity to your thoughts. And you could go back and see what you've done and where you've come from and where you're going to and stuff like that. Even in, believe it or not, a fiction book that you might have written. So, but
yeah. And with fiction, one of the things is I did lose a child. And so with fiction, and I was a journalist when I was younger and then switched to fiction. And one of the things I liked about fiction was that therapeutic side, of the ability to work through, whatever that is, whether it's anger or grief or feelings, but also define a different outcome if you wanted to or whatever. So I find it to be very therapeutic.
Yeah, it is.
And authentic, because I think when you're sharing that part of yourself, we're sharing our souls, then you're showing this part of yourself that is pained or is, stressed or frustrated. And I think that does come through in a positive way in your writing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, I guess when you talked about with your son and you wrote, is this stuff that you then use, or is this more like therapy writing where you write through it, but you're not actually using it in your story, or do you use it in your story?
I use the feelings of revenge and justice and how they combust. I don't use the real life experience that we went through because that's horrific. I mean, you personally, but I draw upon those emotions so that I could filter it into my story and make that story more engaging, authentic for the reader so that they could experience it. And I think when a reader taps into their history of the trauma, or I should say a writer taps into the history of what they've been exposed to and they write about it, they don't have to write about real life stories or real life situations. They could use hints of it and just really steer and make that story revitalize the emotion,
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think that we need to view as a skill. Having that knowledge. I've never written about losing a child because it's just too close to home, but I've definitely written about grief, or I've written about kind of coping with life, getting up in the morning when you really don't want to, those type of things. And I think that really helps the reader then connect to, because most people have experience that on some level, right?
Mhm.
You know, so then they go, wow, you wrote about this. And I had someone say this the other day, like you actually gave voice to these thoughts in my head that I could never put voice to.
Mhm.
And I think that's very powerful. And to be willing to do it, because it is still painful, right? Like when
Oh,
you're
yeah. Oh,
writing about
yeah.
that, you're still hurting when you're writing
Oh,
about
yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. The nice thing about putting it on paper is that the reader gets to experience what you've gone through to a smidge, but yet it doesn't dredge up all your emotions and expose you totally.
Right.
But I really, I really like to read books that, um, if they have an emotional scene that's dramatic, the next chapter isn't like, great, we're done with this. Something just done, but who cares, you know? But yet at the same time, I don't want them to drag you through the mud and just like you're all in that person's head and you can't get above and beyond it. There's a balancing act between drama, emotions, and how you tie it to the next pinch mark that you move that character forward, and get them out of their own head and moving forward. So I think it's a good balancing act.
Yeah, I think so too. And a good writer knows how to do that. I think that, I like memoirs to a degree, but I
Mhm.
also don't like memoirs to a degree because sometimes it is getting dragged through and dragged through and dragged through.
Yeah.
Where I think being able to write fiction, you're able to shift those gears a little bit. So like you said, you might have a chapter that's a little heavier, and then the next chapter you can go a different direction, lighten it up and go back. So you're not just like making the reader, just want to quit. so,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
so
And
let's talk.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, let's talk a little bit about it. So you said you have 3 books. You currently have this book is out, correct? Like people can
Correct.
read it. And when are your next books coming out?
I'm looking at launching the second book in 2026
Okay.
and one in 2027 because I'm actually writing another book and a standalone related to this dual world trilogy. But I'm not a fast writer, and the reason why I'm not a fast writer is because I set time aside to write when I'm writing. Usually, I'm immersed in my writing come fall, winter,
Okay.
and early spring. I'm like definitely in it. But during those warmer weather times, I mean, I might do it a little bit, but I'm more on the administrative end of things, or I'm just doing things with family, you know? So there's a lot of stuff involved, and to writing. And I'm always like, my family's first, whether it's taking care of in-laws, loved ones, or whatever. But I have a passion for this story world. And I did put out, I've got 5 short stories related to little aspects of the behind the scenes story world, whether it's like Callie's journal.
Okay.
And those 3 of them are prequels up to this book, and they're out now. But I write little short stories in between the main 3 book launches. So just to
So
things.
where are your short stories? Like if somebody wanted to read them, where would they read
They're
them?
on Amazon right now.
Okay.
They're Scarred Legends, Scarred Secrets, and Scarred Lies.
Okay.
One of them's like 80 pages long.
Okay.
And then I also have Scarred Secrets Beneath Scars, which is the main book, and then I have the other 2 books coming out. But I have 2 short stories coming out this year. Scarred, hold on, they all start with Scarred. Scarred Visions, which really gets deep into Callie's life. And then I'm titling the other one right now. So I don't know what that title's going to be.
Something with scars, right?
More than likely, yes. Yes. I love intrigue. I love drama. And I think that's why I started everything with Scarred. And I love secrets and I love legends. So, but
That's cool. So the short stories, are they only in e-form, or people can buy them in book form, or?
they're only in ebook form.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually on Amazon, you have to have books, I think page count up to 80 pages or something like that. And most of my short stories are right around 10,000 words.
Okay.
So
that's almost novelette size. I mean, really.
oh yeah, they're decent. 6,000 to 10,000. I mean, one, like I said, is like 80 pages long.
Yeah, and that's like a novella, right? Isn't that about? Yeah. That's
Yeah.
impressive. So yeah, so anybody out there listening, if you want to kind of get the prequels and check some stuff out. And then, of course, this book as well, The Secrets Beneath Scars, that's also on Amazon.
Yes, that's also on Amazon, and I'm working out doing some book signings, actually 8-week book signing this fall. In addition to, it's already in bookstores right now, a couple of local bookstores, and I'm working on some other avenues with that right now. So kind of excited about it.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Book signings can be a lot of fun. I mean, I really enjoy the face-to-face interaction with readers, because I mean, online's fine and you definitely get to know some people, but I feel like when you're face-to-face with people, there's just a way to connect. That's just, I don't know, I really enjoy it. So
I love being face-to-face and meeting people and stuff like that. It's, I don't know, talking to readers that love your genre and learning from them too is so cool. I mean, it really is. And then that gives other ideas for like, I'll put that in here. So
it does. Yeah, totally. I think that readers don't really know, like they actually lend to the storytelling.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I just finished the book 2, which the title of that one is Legends Never Die. And I just finished all the cover art for that. So I'm like really excited to start revealing that shortly.
That's cool. That's cool. So you said you're looking to do book signings, and then so I wanted to talk a little bit about readership and about connecting with readers. Okay. So have you done book signings yet, or is this new?
This year, late last fall, I started doing book signings, but I've got 25 or 26 events this year alone that I'm doing. In Ohio, which is where I live, they've got a big Ohio book con.
Oh, nice.
And that's like 100 authors. And I've been blessed to be part of that. So I'm really looking forward to that. Ohio's really great as far as supporting authors. Really great.
Nice.
So, especially even indie authors. You know, I was on the traditional path for a while. I had an agent and everything like that. And he closed his business and stuff. And I'm very thankful. Not that he closed his business, but I'm very thankful to be on the journey that I am now, because I get to meet so many more people and kind of being more in control of my zone. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, and meet people. I mean, I don't know. I have more fun going to the book signings than anything.
I do too. Yeah, I really do. I think it's just a great way to kind of understand how much your work impacts other people, because you get to see that. Was similar. I was going the traditional route, had some issues with some publishers and went indie. So, and I'm much happier that way as well. But let's talk about readership a little bit, because I think that's something too, with, authors, but also other readers is, now that you've put your book out and you're starting to develop that readership, really, what do you feel like you want your readers to get out of what you're writing? And what is the feedback you're getting from them about your writing?
I'm getting that they definitely are engaging with Callie. It's new. It's definitely a fresh concept. I've been told that by multiple people. There's kind of a national treasure vibe mixed with the romantic storyline. And that continues through the series. I feel I get a very positive response. I don't think everybody's going to like every book. And I think that's okay, because I think we all have our own right to have our own choices. Sure. But I'm not deterred by the responses I've gotten. I'm very thankful for the reviews that are up there, and I'm hoping to get a lot more reviews. But yeah, I don't know. I have absolutely no complaints about any readership problems or anything like that. And you know what? If I did get a negative review, I want to read it, to look at it and learn from it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. I mean, they're rarely personal. I think most times a reader is just really expressing what they saw in the story. And as an author, if you're able to look at what they write and glean from it, doesn't mean you're going to change your writing, but you can say, okay, this is how somebody's perceiving it. It is really important to respect that as well.
Right. I think for me, though, I'm very fortunate that I had the writing group that read my book. And then I I was able to, when I did have an agent, he was pitching to publishers. I took that time that I knew if he was going to carve out the path for me, I needed to make sure I fueled my own path. And so I got endorsements. And that's when the publicist landed Teen Magazine, and Zara was like, yes, I want to read this book. And so she did a spread on it. And that little bit kind of fueled my confidence, and it helps, it helps to have the support of your critique group. It helps to have the support of your other people, other authors that are in your zone and stuff like that. In addition to it, it's priceless for readers when they read your book, whether they like it or whether they don't, they leave a review.
Oh yeah.
I mean, reviews are priceless. That's like winning an Emmy. Seriously, it is. You check out and every morning wake up. Is there a great review or what? Not that I'm always looking, but I think it's important to gauge yourself as a reader, as a writer, what people are saying and stuff like that. So you could learn from that too.
For sure. Yeah, I think I hear readers sometimes say, oh, well, I don't really know what to say, or I don't think it really matters. And, it does. Like, I can't say that enough to readers, that we really do respect your opinion, and it helps us become better writers. So yeah, we listen.
Yeah, but even one sentence makes a difference.
Exactly. I loved it. I love this character. I didn't love it. I did whatever. It doesn't matter, positive or negative, it matters.
Right. Exactly. It really genuinely does matter, because it's like, why did you spend 6 hours of your life reading a book if it did not matter? Can you give 1 minute of your time to say, you know what, this was kind of cool, and great read, check it out. Done,
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk marketing, because I think that's always kind of an area that a lot of writers struggle with. I do as well. I think it's hard for us to promote ourselves. So what are some of the things you do to market that you feel like work? And a specific work for you, because everybody's a little bit different. Like, I'm introverted. I'm not going to be out there like shilling myself, but there are things that work for me. So what works for you?
It's the learning curve. I don't know what works yet. I'm in the process of, this is new to me, like writing a book. I think putting yourself out there, whether like you're putting yourself out there, giving a platform to authors so that they could connect. I think podcasters, engaging, being interviewed, I think that's really significant, because you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your book out there, your brand out there. And thank you to people like you that are willing to do it. Because like you say, you're introverted. It's not necessarily easy for you to interview a stranger. But at the same time, right now, I'm learning that I need to keep fueling my own thoughts, my own desires, and putting this book in the hands of people. And I find, believe it or not, Facebook is great. I know it's not young adult oriented, and I'm getting into TikTok, but that's like a new territory for me.
Yeah.
So, but I think constantly keeping consistent posts, which I struggle with, but I do genuinely try, and always reinventing yourself as far as the posts that you put out there to be engaging and stuff like that. And sometimes it's really hard. It genuinely is really hard. But I think readers want to know a little bit about you. They want to know what kind of animals you have, what inspires you, that kind of stuff. And platforms like you give that, but also snapshots and videos. Mm-hmm. So one thing about, I think that's really good for promoting for my book series is that the setting is real. It takes place, part of it in a historical watermill. And I've given people a tour, a virtual tour of that watermill. And we used to own it for 22 years. And so it's just kind of like fun. And now it's not magical, but there's a magical level of realism in my story world. because I deal with powers and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's kind of neat to give the reader a taste of that world and then build upon it and stuff like that, so that it's tangible to them if they pick it up and read it. So
yeah, and I think, you know, I think people like to know the story behind the story. They want to get to know you a little bit, and even outside of your story, you know, even if you are, like you said, sharing your dog or your vacation or whatever, it just makes you seem more real to them, more connected to them, and so does your story. And I think that's really important. To make your, it sounds bad, but to make yourself accessible to a degree to your readers, so that they get to understand why it's important to read your work.
Yeah. I think there's a balance to it though, because I know some authors, like, they do great at presenting themselves for marketing and stuff like that. However, it's like they're on there so much that it's like, I just want to click, move.
Yes. Yeah. There's a balance.
There's a balance. You want to be strategic. You want to give them a little bit of a flavor, a little bit of your world, but not, it's not all about you. It's about them.
Yeah.
You know, it's about the reader. It's about building that genuine connection with them, so that they'll take a trip into your world, you know, that you've written about. So
yeah, I think you got it in your mind, at least for me. I have to take the sales aspect out of it, and that I'm really sharing a story versus trying to make a sale. And that really has helped me, because I'm not a natural salesperson. It's not who I am. So really for me, it's really about sharing that story. And that's really helped. And I agree. There are people that are just like, buy my book, 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 click. You know, it can only take so much of that before you wear a person out. So
I do great one-on-one. I mean, the book signings like we were talking about, I love it. I immerse myself in it. I love to talk, and I love it when they engage and they ask me like questions that they think are weird. I'm like, oh no, I'll deal with that. That's so fun. But to be like, our conversation, this is relaxing. This is sweet. But to actually get like in a post and say, buy me now.
Right.
No. Yeah. You got to be careful how you write it. So, but yeah.
So let's talk about your series. So you have the trilogy and you have the short stories that go with it. Outside of that, do you have any other story goals in mind, like outside of that world at all? Or is this something that you're kind of continuing to weave in different stories into?
Okay. So I'm on a venture. I'm writing, these 3 books are done. I have 5 short stories related to the Therans Series. I have actually 2 short stories totally unrelated to the Therans Series for middle grade kids, using the same setting, historical setting. And then I'm in the process of co-authoring a nonfiction book, historical book, about the landmark of the Keister Watermill. Wow. And because it's a 4-story, 4,500 square foot building, and it's unique in that it's got 5 components. Most watermills have like a cider press or a frick sawmill, like where they just cut logs. This has like everything. I mean, all the way down to an apple cider press to grinding grain, all of it. And so we owned it for like 22 years. And I want to, when we work with the people that now own it, I want to be able to offer these books at the site, at the gift store, for all ages. So I could cover all different ages, from young kids to young adults to the older people that might just want to pick up a nonfiction book related to the historical aspect of just strictly that mill, you know. So, but yeah.
That's really cool.
Right. So yeah, I do have a venture plan. That is it. But I just here about 5 months ago, started writing a standalone. Okay. So we'll see. I just like to write.
Yeah. So. Me too. So I'm curious though, how did you end up owning Watermill?
I blame that on my husband. He's very eclectic in his desires and his likes. I jokingly say this, he's not normal. He's always out on the edge, the pioneer's edge of something, studying something, learning about something. And one day, we were only married 10 months and we didn't even own a house. We were renting. And he basically said, would you support this? And I'm like, okay. So we, on a handshake, we made a deal to buy the water mill before we owned a house. And we'd only been married 10 months.
Wow.
And I love history. We'd just gotten back from our honeymoon shortly a year before. And I learned the value of history and being a steward of history and the remodeling, the renovations. I love all aspects of it. And so he really cultivated that aspect. And we bought the mill, we owned it, and we brought as much life we could to it. But 4,500 square foot, that's a lot to take care of.
That is a lot to take care of.
Yeah, especially when you've got all facets of it. And I mean, it's all over the internet. I mean, you could Google it and check it out. But so we decided that since we couldn't take it to that next level, the people that we sold it to, Western Reserve Land Conservancy, they got grants and they put like, I think $700,000 into it. Wow. And now they've made it into a museum and we will be working for them. So that's the plan and stuff like that. So hence all my books related to it and stuff.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool though, because in a way you helped kind of like preserve that part of history until somebody else that had more money and ability could do this. So that's got to be something you feel really good about having done with your life.
I'm really pleased I'm humbled by the aspect in America have had an influence, a smidge of an influence on something that, I mean, it was built in 1816. That's old for American standards.
Yeah, that is.
And to be a part of that, and then to see the next generation take it on. But when you've been to castles where you've walked on floors that were built in the 12th century,
yeah,
that's nothing compared to the mill is young, and believe it or not, all those aspects of castles, of history, of catacombs, of legends are all through my book series too.
That's cool. Yeah. I love that. So we're getting close to time. So real quick, let's just have you again, let everybody know what books you have out, where people can find you, if you have a website, and any events you have coming up that they might want to check you out at. In
Medina, Ohio, I will be at the Big Ohio Book Con. There's 100 great authors there. Of all different genres. So you'll have to come out to that. That's, like I said, Medina, Ohio. You could find the Therans Secrets Beneath Scars on Amazon. There's some bookstores that I'm working with later this fall to do an 8-week book tour. So I will have those posted. You will find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter underneath Cyndi Brec. And I'm learning to navigate TikTok, so don't grade me on that one.
Yeah, TikTok is still the thing that I have one and I have followers, but I feel like it looks so awkward. It's just so awkward for me. I at one point did a reading and did the reading and then posted it and somebody said, "Why does she look like an MPG?" And I laughed so hard because I did. Not my thing, but I'm trying. Yes.
No, it is just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. My daughter was managing the TikTok account for me, but last year I broke my foot, so I have not picked back up with it. She says she'll teach me how to do that. So nothing like learning something from your daughter.
Yes. No, my kids teach me a lot. So yeah, I get that. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. It was good to talk to you, and your stories sound really amazing. So everybody, please check out Cyndi's work. For everybody that tuned in, we appreciate you guys tuning in as always. And just a reminder to send a star to let us know how we're doing. Here at Go Indie Now, every time you contribute, you get entered into our season prize package drawing with gift cards, swag, and more. And again, we really appreciate you coming on, and sorry for the technical difficulties. We got to take care of. I see your name up there now, so thank you, Jo.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Thank you guys for doing and helping all the indie authors out there. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, we all understand. We've been there, so for sure. And thank you guys for tuning in.